Good morning to you. Our topic for January is diversity and inclusivity, which is one of the... Oh, February. Why are they talking to me? February, diversity and inclusivity, which is one of the shared values of our spiritual movement, the Centers for Spiritual Living. And February is the correct month to do diversity and inclusivity for a number of reasons. It is, of course, Black History Month, and we are also in the process of celebrating the season for nonviolence, especially on our Sunday evening services where there are resources for you to take home if you'd like to integrate the principles of nonviolence into your own life at home. And for the benefit of our radio and video audiences, I'm going to invite you to read with me the affirmation again that we read earlier on in the service because it's so central to the whole message. And it comes from our national organization's documentation, which includes the bylaws and the policies and procedures, the place where it describes our vision of a healthy, loving world, as well as all of our shared values, the values that we are highlighting each month this year, 2017. So we started in January with the spiritual value, spiritual living, and how to incorporate that. And this month we're moving on to diversity and inclusivity. So here is the affirmation, and I invite you to read it with me again. We value, embrace, and celebrate the individual uniqueness and contribution of all people as they express through differences of gender, ethnicity, culture, history, experience, talents, and sexual orientation. So you really can't, in my opinion, read that too many times. I'm imagining a person who is discovering the Centers for Spiritual Living, our spiritual movement, for the very first time, and they read this statement, and I can imagine how it would inform that person looking at us from the outside. It could inform them where we stand on matters of rights, fairness, inclusion, justice. That statement of our values would give an observer a very clear idea why we would embrace the words that are to be found at the foot of the Statue of Liberty. It's a poem, the New Colossus, and it says, "Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here, at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows a worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp," cries she with silent lips, and then the famous words, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." It is a poem written by Emma Lazarus, who was a Sephardic Ashkenazi Jew whose family were immigrants from Portugal and Germany. I think we ought to read our affirmation one more time. Let's go. We value, embrace, and celebrate the individual uniqueness and contribution of all people as they express through differences of gender, ethnicity, culture, history, experience, talents, and sexual orientation. And I can imagine a person reading this for the very first time, looking at our movement from the outside in, and how they could see why Centers for Spiritual Living would also embrace our United States of America's values of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and why we would strive to apply them to all people, and why it is that we continue to yearn for this idea of a world that works better for everyone without the loss of human rights and without the loss of national security. And we may not know how exactly to accomplish that yet. However, it would be clear from this statement that we would tend towards inclusion rather than exclusion. Look, I have to read it again. I mean, you can join me if you want to, but it's up to you. Here we go. We value, embrace, and celebrate the individual uniqueness and contribution of all people as they express through differences of gender, ethnicity, culture, history, experience, talents, and sexual orientation. Now, it is significant to me that as I look at this statement, and I'm examining it right now, that nowhere in it, I'm checking, nowhere in it does it say tolerate or put up with or allow. No, it doesn't say that. So it presents a very serious question for those of us who might call ourselves a member of a Center for Spiritual Living somewhere. It presents the question, is that organizational shared value my value also? Do I celebrate diversity? Or do I give it a nod of approval when I read about it? Do I embrace people who are different? Or is it important to me that they know their place in my world as tolerated aliens of differentness? See, now there's value, diversity and inclusivity. It actually comes from the core of our spiritual teaching, the science of mind, that teaches us that there is one undivided reality that we are all part of, making us all from the same original source. Siblings, related to each other, belonging to each other, connected to each other and to every appearing thing and every creature on this planet and elsewhere, with the ability to love each other or to withhold love, with the ability to be amazing stewards of our planet or to squander its wealth, with the ability to teach our children to be lovers of life in its diversity, or it's a paradox that we have such a range of possibility from this one source. A person reading this statement of our values might understand why Centers for Spiritual Living might stand in solidarity with those who refuse to discriminate based on race or religion or nationality or gender or sexual orientation. It would be hypocritical of us to claim such a value and then not sincerely, innocently, beautifully strive to embrace it. It would be hypocritical. One of my colleagues wrote to me and said, he was only in favor of diversity if the diversity was organic, not forced or artificial. I disagree. I'm reminded of a time where here in Santa Rosa we created a video, and it was several individuals each reading one sentence from our statement of beliefs, what we believe. And we actively searched out people in our community to represent the broadest range of diversity we could come up with. Here's the video.
We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause.
This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation.
The universe is the body of God.
We believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in humankind and that all people are incarnations of one Spirit.
We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding.
We believe that the kingdom of heaven is within, and that we experience this kingdom to the degree that we become conscious of it.
We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all.
We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God.
We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence.
We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our own intuitive and spiritual nature, and that any person may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God.
We believe that we are surrounded by the creative mind of God, which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it.
We believe in healing through the power of this mind.
We believe in the control of conditions through the power of this mind.
We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all.
We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that all life is God.
Now I'm remembering the very first time that this video was viewed at our center. An individual from our center came up to me and asked me how it is and why I selected the people who were in the video, because she pointed out to me that the resulting product did not accurately reflect or match the actual profile of our community of mostly white, older, female people. And she felt that the diversity in this video was forced or artificial, which is sometimes the response from someone who is in the majority group. To embrace the value of diversity, the people in the majority group are the ones who have to take the definite steps to address their preference for members of their own majority. I wouldn't describe this video as forced. I would characterize it as showing a willingness to face the habits that we have to gravitate towards sameness. It's not right or wrong or bad. It's just an opportunity to bring diversity into the state of being an active value. That happens when the larger group is willing to actively invite the minorities within it to have positions that are visible, powerful, can have opinions and freedom. Now, whether or not that will change the actual profile of the community can't be known, nor is it important. But the introduction of those new ideas is what is so important. So here in Santa Rosa, we are currently looking at and for people who are under 35. Because there are not many of them here. People who are any other color than white, because there are not many of them here. People who speak Spanish, for example, and we do this by actively recruiting people and giving them positions that are visible and offering to them services that hopefully help them feel the sincerity of our desire to have them be there. For example, like today, this very service right now is being simultaneously interpreted in Spanish. Did you know that? Now, our tendency towards sameness is what makes it so important to pay attention to not going to sleep. And that is when we are observing a value or paying attention to a spiritual practice. I know I have to pay attention to my own tendency to drift towards the comfort of safety and routine. And it reminds me of how grateful I am to our teaching, The Science of Mind, which encourages us to keep our minds open and growing beyond previous limits, so that the creative genius of life can flow through us in new, ever-expanding ways, matching the new, broader, bigger ideas I embrace in my thinking. Our national organization has the Centers for Spiritual Living has a commission. It's called the Cultural Diversity Commission, and they've got a job. One of their jobs is to make sure that we stay true to our statement of value. So, for example, if a committee is formed to write a press release on same-sex marriage, for example, the Diversity Commission checks to make sure, is there a gay person on that committee? If there is a panel to discuss women's issues, they're going to check. They're going to make sure that panel better not be all men, no matter what color they are. The commission is to help us keep integrity with our values. February is Black History Month, and we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who sacrificed so much to set our nation on the right path in this regard. Over 50 years ago, a peaceful march, a civil rights movement march, began in Selma, Alabama. And it was violently interrupted in a confrontation that has become known as Bloody Sunday. Now, there were no cell phones at the time to capture the event, but it was captured by news, video, and photos, and nevertheless, the whole scene went viral in its own way, and it established beyond any doubt that the civil rights movement was being stopped with brutality and violence. And it represented a turning point in our nation, or maybe the beginning of a turning point that we haven't fully completed yet. And Dr. King, in a speech the day after the march, he suggested with his words that a person dies when they refuse to stand up for their values, for what is right and just and true. That is why our theme this year, values-based spiritual living, is so important to me, because it's an ongoing reminder that when a person turns their back on their spiritual values, they begin to turn their back from the very thing that gives their life meaning and worth and warmth and substance. I know for me that when I don't stand up for the individual uniqueness of the contributions of other people, when I don't stand up for that, some part of me suffers, because it is one of my values. And standing up for your values isn't always easy, especially if you also have other values, such as compassion and kindness and love. Because when a person encounters injustice and unfairness and prejudice, the reactive tendency is to meet unkindness with unkindness. Yet, in that moment when a person who values kindness turns their back on kindness, they begin to turn their back on the very thing that gives them the fuel to stand up and speak for diversity and inclusivity. The very thing that gives shape and meaning and warmth to life. Our diversity discussion group, which meets on the second Sunday of every month at 1:30 p.m., it's open to all, they have a mission which may be of interest to you. Their mission is to be a calm, kind, dedicated support for one another as the group explores the systems and institutions and culture of the United States of America. So they get together and they discuss books and articles related to diversity